This week on the Strong Coffee Drip, we're talking what unlimited breadsticks have to do with an interesting money-making scheme, living a hash-free life on Threads, and getting paid to leave social media. I'm Brian from Strong Coffee Marketing, and this week I'm joined by Office Golden Tea Champion and partner at our agency, Duncan, and Strong Coffee Project Manager and Wendy's superfan, Ian. Good to see both of you.
Hey, Brian.
And you.
So before we get started on what we want to talk about today, it's been a wild week in digital marketing. The OpenAI saga has come full circle. I saw this morning it's truly come full circle. And X is experiencing some serious advertising issues. Before we get started, I'll go to both of you. Which one of these stories was the bigger story over the course of the past week? Duncan, I'll start with you.
I mean, OpenAI by far. Nobody really cares about. Like locally, no one even calls X. We still call it Twitter as this sort of like badge of honor that no one. You can't say tweet and retweet and all this vernacular that we came from this platform with X. So I feel like as a society, we've just decided, you know what, we're just going to continue calling it Twitter regardless of what the app says. But anyway, my point is I don't think people really care about that side of things. The OpenAI thing has been incredibly interesting from a stock perspective, from a marketing perspective, from a human advancement perspective. There's a lot of interesting new things happening there with people getting fired, people getting hired, people joining sides. And it is a race, like this AI race that's going on between these big companies like Google and Microsoft, Facebook, Meta. It's just fascinating to watch these incredibly smart people move around and how they play these sorts of games. It's kind of like a Game of Thrones in real time. Like I would bet you Netflix is like chomping at the bit right now to get the rights to tell this story because I'm sure it's a juicy one.
Yeah, and it's an HR nightmare. And it's interesting too. A chunk of it happened over a weekend. I don't know about you, but on a weekend, I'm going to watch the hockey game and go to the mall with my kids. And a lot of this unfolded on a weekend too. Ian, what about you?
No, I think Duncan hit the nail on the head there. I totally agree that the OpenAI was the bigger story. Like you say, it sort of played out like a soap opera. I mean, for people that are following it like we were, it was every hour or two you were waiting to see what the next update was. So yeah, very interesting to see how it all unfolded and may continue to over the coming days.
I was a bit concerned about putting anything in this week's show because it was happening so fast that by the time we record it, there could be a million other things that have already happened. So
sure.
It's been something. All right. So now I was somewhat lenient with the 2-minute horn last week. I let you guys run a bit long. I mean, we were all learning as we go. But this week, I'm taking off the training wheels. My trigger finger will be ready. The clip of me actually buzzing Duncan in the middle of him speaking about Twitter was very well received. So really, I just want to give the audience what they want. We did discover right before we went on to record, my horn might not be working. So I might have to manually do a horn. I'm still going to be keeping track of time, though. All right. Ready to roll?
Absolutely.
Let's get started. Question number 1. Threads is introducing a new feature that allows users to tag topic using hashtags, a core element of the Twitter experience. Unlike Twitter, Thread limits each post to one tag to reduce spam. In addition, the number sign will not appear in the colored tag. Testing will begin in Australia with Meta planning to make changes based on user feedback before expanding to more countries. Question, will these hashless hashtags be cool or somewhat confusing? Duncan, what are you thinking? Or Ian, we'll start with you.
All right. I think that removing the octothorpe symbol itself will have zero effect. You can still see that it's going to be a tag because it will be highlighted in blue and it will still be clickable. But I think that the limiting it to one tag per post is the thing that may have an impact here. And it makes me wonder if our Meta trying to move towards a tagless, this is a kind of halfway house between having as many as you want. Hashtags were originally designed to group content, and having only one tag isn't always appropriate. So, or you may need more. So I did wonder if they're trying to move towards a tagless future where you can just search. Because like when we're searching email, for example, you don't use hashtags to group your emails. You just search and it finds it. So is that the future? We will see.
Duncan, are you liking a hashless future?
I mean, to me, it's sort of moot. It doesn't really matter. I mean, Threads was built literally out of the turmoil of Twitter and X and Elon. I think they just, like, Meta had it in their back pocket this whole time, and they're like, well, if we're going to launch it, might as well just launch it now. So the fact that they're starting to adopt some of the characteristics of the platform to try and, bring over users doesn't shock me one way or another. I mean, I find these tech companies are kind of cannibalizing each other constantly anyway. Reels is a really good example that used to be on TikTok, and now it's like literally everywhere. It's on YouTube. It's on, like, Google took it over, Meta took it over. So I think when you get a good idea in tech, people are going to copy it. Does it need to have a hashtag? No. As long as the functionality of it works. I mean, realistically, to me, these hashtags have always just been internal links. It's a way to keep people on the platform longer. It's the same thing of writing a piece of content and linking to another piece of content on your website. That's all it really is. But if it works and people are used to it and that behavior is there, it makes sense to me.
I've always viewed hashtags as a bit like the Dewey Decimal System. I don't know if either of you know what the Dewey Decimal System is.
Enlighten us.
Ian, you might. Ian, do you know what the Dewey Decimal System is?
Is it to do with logging library books?
It is correct. That's how they used to keep track of library books in a library. And it basically was this really convoluted system. So when you had to figure out where a book was, you went on a certain shelf and there it was. It's kind of what hashtags are, right? It groups it by topics, etc. I think the thing that's more interesting for me isn't the fact that the hash sign isn't going to be there. It's that they're limiting it to one tag per post, which when you think of a lot of posts out there on X or Twitter or wherever else you might see these hashtags being used, people are loading them up, right? But to only be able to use one, I think that's kind of interesting. And I'm actually more curious to see what that ends up looking like, as opposed to it's still a link, it's still colored, it just doesn't have the little
Could be kind of similar to Reddit in the sense that, like, if they're trying to group things into, like, Reddit has their subreddits, which are basically groups of content. I think that could be what they're trying to do. So if you search one specific word, but I mean, the curious thing for me is, we used to always have data on, like, what are the most popular hashtags. Mm-hmm. So, are we as a society going to know what those are? Or are we going to just use random ones like we always have? Or is it going to be like a categorized system where you have to choose the hashtag without the hashtag version that matches best with your post? I don't know. I mean, we'll see where it goes, but I think it's interesting. But for me, it just makes sense. It's just kind of like a user trait that we're used to. So it's a natural evolvement of the platform.
I don't know if we'll ever use the word hashtag as much in a single little segment ever again than we did just now. So congratulations, everyone.
Thanks.
All right, let's move on. Question number 2. A study conducted by... we should, a little ding thing at the bottom. A study conducted by researchers from the University of Chicago, UC Berkeley, Bocconi University, and the University of Cologne reveals that most social media users, especially young individuals, continue using platforms like Instagram and TikTok despite feeling unhappy. The study surveyed 1,000 college students in the US, and it showed that participants would need to be paid $59 on average to deactivate TikTok for a month and $47 to deactivate Instagram if their peers continued to use those platforms. However, users would be willing to pay $28 and $10 respectively if others, including themselves, deactivated TikTok and Instagram. The study suggests a social media trap where users experience negative well-being about the fear of missing out, indicating a strong network effect. Sounds like some serious FOMO for all users. I know I've seen this with my kids. An interesting study, and I think you have to look at the study a few times to really get at what they're talking about, where if it's just me deactivating my social, you'd have to pay me to do it. But if myself and all my friends were doing it, I would actually be willing to pay my friends to deactivate. It's almost like I don't want to miss out on something, so I'd rather nobody has it than just me not have it. Bit of a spin on this question, Duncan. I'm going to ask you first. Out of a platform that you regularly use on social media, if you had to get rid of one tomorrow, what would it be and why?
Instagram.
Really? That's not what I would have thought for you, Duncan.
Well,
Why Instagram?
I feel like all of these apps are kind of similar. I mean, I found this study actually kind of interesting because it's a little bit of a different twist on. I mean, we all know that social media in general creates this FOMO, this fear of missing out. When you see your friends doing various things, you're like, oh, why wasn't I invited? I would have liked that. And it doesn't create a really good mental cycle in your head. You kind of go down some weird holes sometimes. And I think, us as a society, we're actually kind of training ourselves to feel bad when we're not being included. And this is why, even in the study, it's basically saying that, people are drawn to these accounts just to make sure they're not missing out on something, which is kind of why I feel like we might have a bit of a societal problem with depression. There's been a lot of studies about that, but this is kind of a spin on that same study to suggest not only is social media causing these kind of feelings with people, but on top of that, people are aware of this and they still stick with it simply because they want to know what their friends are doing. So it's two-pronged there in the sense that it's kind of like a trap. Like, that's really what it is. And that's why I find the study interesting. It's like people don't want to leave it because they still want to know, but at the same time, they know that that's hurting them, is a fascinating problem that, I mean, I think they'll be studying things like this and social media's effect on society for decades. And I think that's also why some of these apps were designed the way they were. They had a lot of psychologists involved with, reward systems within people's brains, notifications, etc. Is all really designed to play with how our minds work. And I think in the long term, next 20, 30 years, we'll see social media as a general negative on society. And this study kind of backs that.
I agree, Duncan.
Sorry, was that even answering the question? I'm just realizing.
Well, you answered the question at the very start. You would get rid of Instagram, but I appreciate your candor as to the study itself. I'm a bit surprised, Duncan, that you would be Instagram. But you know what? To each his own.
Well,
Ian,
I really just I have Reddit, TikTok, and Instagram. And I have Facebook for just Facebook. But
yes, Ian, what are you getting rid of if you had to get rid of one?
Well, although I have accounts for all of them and we use them daily at work, I actually don't go on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook for personal use really anymore anyway. The only one I am on regularly is YouTube, and I am not getting rid of that. But yeah, that and Messenger. I use Messenger to keep in touch with people who perhaps don't live in North America, for example, and it's an easy way to, if they don't have WhatsApp, it's an easy way to get hold of them. But
because you are from Scotland, I know we talked about this last time.
I am.
Despite the whole Loch Ness thing, you are from Scotland?
I am, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Still living the
I think
ruse.
Yeah, still living the dream back in Scotland, but you are here with us in North America now. And I think, Ian, you mentioned YouTube, and YouTube's an interesting one because as much as it's a social channel, it's very much a search engine at this point too, right? So it
absolutely
goes across both.
Yeah, I think the way I use it is very much as to view. I don't post things on YouTube. I'm not, so in that respect, I guess it's quite different from a lot of the other social medias, and it's more like watching cable, a one-way communication rather than a two-way communication for the way I use it, certainly. So yeah.
Well, I think that's why for me, Instagram was the one I chose because I don't have any friends that are on TikTok or YouTube or Reddit. Like that's just the random internet people.
Sure.
Whereas Instagram is my friends, and that's where I experience that FOMO factor. So that's the most logical one for me to get rid of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No,
But I think what Duncan went into a bit deeper, I agree that it's very interesting. This story reminded me a bit of a story I read a year ago or thereabouts, where people were getting rid of their smartphones and going back to dumb phones, like to do a detox, because the constant notifications was just giving them anxiety. And around the time, I remember I turned off a huge number of my notifications, and it's quite freeing.
Like the sun came up the next day, right? Everything was fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you go back before phones, like 50, 60, 70 years, like mobile phones, like, people did just fine. They were,
Exactly.
I don't think there was as much people that had, depression, but maybe they just didn't report it. But the point simple being is just that these devices that are constantly attached to us, while they may make our lives more convenient, they may make us more productive, there's obviously some negative side effects as well.
Duncan, are you saying that somebody that doesn't have a cell phone or hasn't had a cell phone for a good chunk of his life would be old? You don't have to go back 50 years to talk about before cell phones.
All I'm saying is they might be happier, and that would be an interesting study.
I remember phoning friends and saying, hey, do you want to do something today, instead of texting them?
Well, now we don't even pick up the phone anymore because it's always spam. So, I mean, like, when's the last time
and that concludes Duncan's rant.
Aside from Halloween kids coming to your door, when's the last time that you've really been excited when the doorbell rings?
I don't even go to the door.
Yeah, exactly.
I just wait till they leave. And then
we as a society are becoming more and more reclusive. We don't want to be phone called. We don't want people at our door. We're just, that's us.
Hermits. Okay. Duncan, I'll give you a call later. We can discuss this further. Okay, better yet, I'll show up at your door and you won't answer. Give me a text
first so I pick up.
Okay, perfect. All right, moving right along. I didn't use the horn there twofold because it doesn't work, and also because there wasn't one person talking continuously
that was your
for 2
noise.
minutes.
You're supposed to make it with your voice.
Duncan, no one talked
Why don't we
continually
just practice?
for 2 minutes.
Just one practice for. Okay, I think that's good. Yeah, you're just gonna do that.
I think I nailed it.
Yeah.
All right, question number 3. Let's get this train back on the tracks. At the start of November, false online ads circulating on Facebook and Instagram suggested that the Olive Garden was planning to close all of its locations. The ads led users to a lengthy article listing various businesses closing locations in 2023. Olive Garden appeared at number 191 on the list. This article was huge. I actually saw it. It was gigantic. The article then clarified Olive Garden planned to close 45 locations due to a decline in customers during COVID, and additional 40 locations set to close within the next 2 years as part of a broader strategy. An Olive Garden spokesperson confirmed that the information was false, but the situation highlighted a growing trend of advertising arbitrage, an advertising strategy designed to generate more revenue from ads within an article than the cost of the initial clickbait ad that attracted users to the article. So this one was actually kind of interesting for me. Duncan, in our previous lives, you and I, we were publishers. We had a website that we had Google AdSense on, and we made a little bit of money from it. And we had a decent following. We would have 1 to 2 million people visit our website every year. And I would sometimes sit there and think, what if we ran ads to get more people to come to our website in hopes that they would then click on the ads on our website? And if the money it cost to get those people there in the first place was less than the money we made on the ads, we could make money all day. That's exactly what this is all about. It's an interesting way to make money. I think that it happens a lot more frequently than we realize. When you go to certain web pages and they're asking you to click around on a million different pages and there's ads everywhere, that's kind of the idea. Get somebody to a website and then hopefully make a bunch of money off of it. And then a broader question, I guess, in the case of the Olive Garden would be, how can a business like Olive Garden, or even any small business, medium-sized business, large business, monitor what's going on so they don't get a bunch of frantic phone calls or texts or emails from somebody saying, are you going to close all your locations down? Duncan, I'm curious to talk to you first about this, more on the advertising side of things, the idea of this strategy of let's get people to come to a website using ads. in hopes that we will make more money from the ads that they click when they're on our site. Is that a valid strategy, do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting if you like. I know we're not looking at the article specifically right now, but the ad that in question here was a Facebook ad.
Yeah.
They probably had it also on Instagram.
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram have said, yeah.
The idea of running an ad to drive traffic only really works if the content that you're putting out there is going to go viral. So as an example, like you can't do this with Google because Google doesn't have that like network where people can comment and there's like a bandwagon effect on the ad. So if you are to do this, you have to use a social channel. So I bet you it would work with TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, but probably Facebook. And you're going to have to make it clickbaity enough that it gets shared, it gets bandwagon effect. And we've seen this with posts. Like we've done things for clients where we're running little contests that, you know, everyone wants to be a part of. And then you all of a sudden have an ad that you put $5 behind and it has 350 comments and growing. It kind of like it gains its own momentum at a certain point because people share it on their profiles. And it's no longer an ad that like you're paying to promote. It's just out there and people are sharing it organically. And if you can kind of get that sort of a bandwagon effect on an ad that you put a little bit of money behind, absolutely, you can drive revenue. Now, I want to say two things about their tactics. So the fact that they had 150 businesses on here.
More. It was probably, like 191 was Olive Garden. I think it was over 200.
I mean, the article itself is massive. So kudos to them for that. That takes a lot of work, but that also is 191 potential pages that they had to create for this piece of content, unless they have a tool to do it anyway. But each of those pages have ads, and every single time that someone goes to a new page, it triggers a new page view. So they can do this twofold. They can basically say to Google, or Google, if someone clicks on the ad, they get their money that way. But also as a website that's getting a lot of traffic, they can basically go to advertisers as a whole and say, hey, we got 1 million impressions or 1 million page views last year. In order to advertise on our site, you have to pay us X. But they've designed their site and their UX in a way that not only brings in ad revenue, but also encourages people to click to the next page, therefore kind of doubling up the effectiveness of just a little bit of money behind an ad and a really clickbaity title. I bet you they also did split testing just to see what clickbaity one did best. And the Olive Garden one was the one that obviously got picked up by news sites. And I'm done.
I almost like it more than the actual horn. But Duncan, you bring up some really, really valid points. And, you know, I'm reminded of the articles. Remember when they have a slider and you have to click through the slider to get to the information that they actually talked about inside of the ad. And all they're doing exactly what you said, ramping up your impressions so you can turn around and say, look at how great our website is. Look at all the impressions we get, make more money. Mm-hmm. Ian, a question for you going back to the Olive Garden side of things and the business, the brand protection side of thing. What could a business do to avoid getting on these kind of articles to begin with?
I honestly don't know. If that question came to me, I would be going straight to Duncan and asking for his advice on that one. Duncan obviously made some good points about this being a valid strategy, but obviously I wouldn't consider it an ethical strategy.
No, so, it's gray area at best.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't, obviously, clickbait is nothing new. We've seen this a lot, but I don't know, if something's going to work, someone's going to try it, and I don't know what options businesses have to make sure that the next target isn't them.
Honestly, watching your brand mentions through a third-party tool, watching what people are saying, there's probably not a whole lot you can do because an article like this could pop up so quickly as well, right?
Sure.
Well, it's not, the article isn't untrue. It's inferring something that the user has to infer themselves. So I mean, even as a business, there's not even like a libel thing there because it's a little bit of an inference, and that's why clickbait in that title in that situation worked because they are closing stores. That is a fact. Now, if that user, I mean, the ad itself, if I recall, literally just said that Olive Garden was closing stores.
And I don't even know when you go and dive deeper into it, are they really closing stores? I don't know.
their description was, "Is this the end of breadsticks?" But I mean,
I hope
it
not.
kind of suggests that they're closing, but in actuality, that's not the reality. So it's done quite cleverly. But I do think it is a bit of gray area when it comes to what advertisers should and should not advertise. I mean, Facebook and Meta have done this a little bit with politics, where there was some fact checking going on after they got their hand slapped. So I feel like there may be a larger thing going out there to try and combat this, but we're seeing this sort of idea of misleading content be a serious problem in the web space. Now with the deep fakes of having people be able to basically say whatever you want them to say, understanding what's real and what's not real is going to be incredibly difficult, and there needs to be some sort of check and balance, because otherwise we're in for a whole lot of basically propaganda, misdirection. We won't know what's real anymore, and it's going to be kind of a scary Wild West on the internet until we can figure it out.
And a bonus question very quickly before we move on. How many breadsticks from Olive Garden can you each eat in one sitting? How about a dozen? Could you do a dozen?
I mean, I would probably manage 3, but I really like the soup too. So like I put the breadsticks in the soup, but I think like 3 is like the max. Because the salad's pretty good too. Like I could just go there and eat those things all day long.
Yeah. Ian, how many breadsticks in a soup?
Yeah, I was going to say 2.
Ian, have you ever been to the Olive Garden?
I have been, I believe, 1 time. And the breadsticks were good, but I think I'd tap out at 2 or 3.
Lightweights, I think I could do like 8.
That's just your whole meal.
Yeah, so you know what? Maybe when Duncan's in town next, maybe we go to the Olive Garden for a bit of a throwdown. All right, before we wrap up for the day, hot tip of the week. This is one that Ian and I have some experience with. We get asked all the time about social media posting and workflow tools. I know we do a lot of work with municipalities, and they're always looking for tools that will allow a variety of departments to be a part of the social media of the organization without actually posting. And Ian, as Ian can tell you, we've tested so many of these tools over the years. A lot of free trials, a lot of sitting through sales presentations. But the one we keep coming back to is a tool called Loomly. 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 We don't get paid by Loomly. We don't have an affiliate program with Loomly. But I can tell you that if you're looking for a tool that allows you to put posts out, and there's so many tools that do that across a variety of channels, but in addition, you're looking to create some really solid workflows for different people in a company. Who has the ability to post where? Can they only post between certain times, etc.? Loomly is one that we've recommended to so many clients, and it's been a wonderful tool for many of them. But I think the idea of being able to create these custom workflows is really what sets it apart from a lot of the other ones that we've tested. And Ian, I think you'll agree, Loomly has been a real godsend for a lot of our clients, to be honest with you. When they're trying to sort out who can post where and who can do what, it's really helped them a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the custom workflows, which are great, and the just the ability to have all the different sort of admin levels is really handy. So I think it's been a great tool, and it's very easy to use, which is obviously a good selling point when it comes to rolling out to a variety of different clients. Then
Yeah, really easy to use. Overall, really, really like it. So this week in the office, it's kind of just business as usual. Lots going on. I'll be on the road next week doing some speaking. That'll be exciting. I haven't done that in about a month or so. Duncan's been working on content for our new website. Slowly moving towards getting our office turned into a creator space, a studio. We'll have more on that in the coming weeks. But other than that, it's been a slice, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. We made it through episode 2. The boss clearly figured this was okay, because here we are in episode 2. So thanks to Ian and Duncan for jumping on today. Be sure to subscribe to Strong Coffee Marketing on YouTube to get all of our latest content. And we hope you have a wonderful week. Until next time, guys, let's get back to work. Talk to you later.
Bye.